Good morning, everyone. I call to order the December meeting of the University of Minnesota Board of Regents. Thank you to those joining us in the boardroom and by way of live stream today. I'll note that Regent Farnsworth and Gully are online. We will begin today's agenda with the recognition of 3 senior leaders and 1 newly named Regents professor. President Cunningham, would you like to join me at the podium?
Good morning, everyone. It's with deep gratitude that we would like to recognize Chancellor Janet Erickson today. Chancellor Erickson, would you join us at the podium? For the past 4 years, Chancellor Erickson has supported the University of Minnesota Morris and set this campus up for continued success. Thank you. Under the leadership of Chancellor Erickson, the University of Minnesota Morris has experienced enrollment growth, launched the Degree at 3 program, launched a new core curriculum that includes credit for high impact experiences, and achieved the number 6 public liberal arts college ranking in U.S. News and World Report. Her impact has been felt throughout this university in Western Minnesota and beyond. Chancellor Erickson, thank you sincerely for your commitment to our University of Minnesota Morris community. Please join me in thanking Chancellor Erickson for her service. I see a sure that handshakes around the horseshoe are part of our tradition. Now we recognize Dr. Shashank Priya for his leadership within our Office of Research and Innovation. Dr. Priya, would you join us at the podium? For the past 3 years, Dr. Priya has served as the Vice President for Research and Innovation, where under his leadership, the University of Minnesota has maintained a top 15 national ranking among public research universities. Dr. Priya has also made significant strides in bolstering corporate relationships and collaboration throughout our university. In the days ahead, we look forward to his continued success in his new role. As of last week, he assumed the position of the founding executive director of the National Security Research Institute, and he will also serve as an advisor to the Chancellor of the University of Minnesota Duluth, where he will support research growth. Dr. Priya, we appreciate your passion, experience, and the expertise you've brought to the University of Minnesota. Please thank me in joining Dr. Priya for his leadership and wishing him the very best in this next chapter serving you. Next, I would like to recognize Julie Tonneson for her leadership as Vice President and Budget Director. She joins us up here. Since joining the university in 1993, Vice President Tonneson has been one of the most trusted and influential stewards of the institution's financial health. Few individuals have shaped our financial trajectory and our capacity to advance our mission as deeply as she has. As someone who came to the university with a background in emergency medicine, I value the clarity, direct communication, and the ability to frame decisions in terms of options and consequences that she has brought. And Vice President Townsend has brought exactly that. Vice President Townsend, your legacy is the stability you created, the opportunities you enabled, and the thousands and thousands and thousands of students, faculty, and staff and Minnesotans who benefited from your steady hand. And I personally want to thank you. When I first came in here, you were also took the service of serving in the interim role as the highest budget and financial officer for the university, while also doing, of course, all of your other jobs and guiding me through the beginning of my presidency. I'm forever grateful for that. So thank you so much. We're so excited and appreciative, excited for your next chapter, your well-desired reserved retirement. So thank you. Look at it. Yep.
You for everything.
What if I don't like that?
It's okay. Thank you. Finally, we recognize McKnight Professor Paul Glevy, who's earned the highest faculty honor as a Regents professor. Professor Glevy, would you join me at the podium? Professor Glevy is an internationally recognized researcher, game-changing teacher and advisor, and impactful community leader. Through his research, Professor Glevy has pursued solutions around the empirical shortcomings in the study of poverty, inequality, and child nutrition in developing countries. His research has catalyzed international development and education policies, and he makes an impact in our Department of Applied Economics and the College of Food and Agricultural Research Sciences. As one of his former students shared, it's hard to list all the ways that Paul has helped me and others as students and later as professionals. And I had a chance at his at the Regents ceremony to meet a gaggle of mentees and professionals who attribute their career success to him. Professor Glevy, thank you so much for your commitment to our university, for all you have shared with Minnesota, the nation, and the world. Please join me in congratulating Professor Glevy.
Great head of hair.
Yeah, that's right.
Sport coat. It's fixed with.
That's what I said.
Congratulations.
I'm not the only professor from civil.
We went to high school.
I know you.
Yeah.
Okay, our second item is to approve the minutes and the consent report. The draft minutes are included in the docket. The consent report includes gifts, the report of the All University Honors Committee, and the report of the naming committee. Is there anyone that would like to ask a question, make a comment, or separate an item out to be voted on separately before I invite a motion to approve the minutes of the consent report? Okay, there's been no additional questions or comments. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second? Okay, any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Same sign, motion passes. Okay. And next, we'll hear the report of the president. President Cunningham?
Thank you, Chair Hipsch and members of the board. I'm so glad that we're meeting today. As we approach the end of 2025, this is a great time to reflect on the past year, how we've advanced our mission of research and scholarship and teaching, learning, outreach, and public service. And when I say we, I include the students, faculty, staff, alumni, and friends of the university, everyone contributing in significant and meaningful ways to the ongoing success of the University of Minnesota. I saw this firsthand when I was in Western Minnesota a month or so ago in October. I had the pleasure of visiting the CentraCare Dental Clinic in Wilmer. The students I met with get great training as community dentists in rural Minnesota while caring for patients in at least 17 surrounding counties. Then in those surrounding counties, I had the opportunity to meet with legislators and some of our 641,000 alumni in their home territory. From Northwoods Cafe to Martinelli's Pizza, I loved hearing about their life in their communities, how the University of Minnesota impacted them, and how they stay connected to the university. I especially appreciated hearing from those in the University of Morris community. On January 1st, 2026, Michael Rodriguez will become their new chancellor. As a proud University of Minnesota Morris alum, he's the current dean of the College of Education and Human Development on the Twin Cities. I do believe he was also the Morris student body president during his time on campus there. We appreciate the knowledge, passion, and experience Dean Rodriguez is bringing to this role and back to his community. As mentioned earlier today, we're deeply grateful for all Chancellor Erickson has done over the many years to support the University of Minnesota Morris and to set this campus up for the continued success. Thank you again, Chancellor Erickson. I'd also like to thank our chancellors in Rochester and Duluth for the impact they are making in communities throughout Minnesota. Recently, University of Minnesota Rochester Chancellor Lori Carroll was recognized with the Mayor's Medal of Honor for Educational Excellence. I think that's worth it. And the University of Minnesota Duluth Chancellor Charles Nees was recognized by the Twin Cities Business in their TCB 100 list, which is a guide of those likely to make news and drive change in 2026. Congratulations, Chancellor Nees. We have leaders who are driving change in new roles here too. As you heard just a moment ago, last week, Dr. Shashank Priya, the former Vice President for Research and Innovation, became the founding executive director of the National Security Research Institute and an advisor to the Chancellor of the University of Minnesota Duluth, supporting research growth in a passion area. With Dr. Priya taking on a new role, Joanne Billings, who served as the Associate Vice President for Research Integrity and Compliance, is leading RIO on an interim basis as we embark on a national search. In January, we look forward to welcoming Erin Sexton as the new Vice President for Government and Community Relations. This role is vital to advancing the university's mission and priorities with elected officials, policymakers, and community and campus partners. We're very thankful for the work that Christine Keel has done in anticipation of Erin's arrival. Ahead, the university is embarking on a national search for our next Vice Provost in International Affairs. This person will continue our track record of innovative international education under the guidance of Provost Ritter. We are also innovating in the way of strategic enrollment management. We kicked off this project last May. We heard a little bit about it yesterday. To both leverage the uniqueness of our 5 campuses and strengthen and grow processes and policies across the university. Then we identified a variety of themes on the way to developing and strategize and to maximize synergistic enrollment. Ahead, we'll finalize and deliver reports that will encompass all facets of this project from each of the campuses to the system as a whole. With enrollment increased across all of our campuses, one recommendation that has already emerged is to hire a university-wide vice president for enrollment. This was a recommendation that was delivered to me not only by this outside group, but during my interview trail and pretty much every month, therefore, by both the chancellors and by prior board members. This brings me to our student experience. Recently, we have seen news coverage of U.S. immigration and customs enforcement agents targeting the Somali and Latino populations in our community. I've been hearing from our students, especially our Somali and international students, about the fear and anxiety they are experiencing, and I empathize with this. I want all of our students, as well as our faculty and staff, to know that their university leadership hears them, and we will continue to connect and communicate while extending our support in what we understand are difficult times for their community. One area I would like to highlight there is our International Student and Scholar Services, an office dedicated to serving our university's international community. We appreciate the work that they do and will continue to make resources like this available university-wide. As I've said before, our commitment to belonging means cultivating an environment that supports the safety and well-being of every person in our community. You do belong here, and we are thrilled to have you. Another aspect of the student experience we're focused on is the fact that one in 4 of our students live with food insecurity university-wide. I would like to thank Michelle Trumpy, Callie Connie, and their teams at the Boynton Health and our Office of Student Affairs who are doing vital work and continuing to grow and expand the Nutritious You Food Pantry. I would also like to extend a thanks to Vice President Alice Roberts-Davis and her team for helping institute the Meal a Day program during the time that SNAP benefits were suddenly suspended during the government shutdown. Many people signed up for the program across the university, and nearly 1,000 meals were served. These efforts are part of a continued commitment to the safety and well-being of our students, faculty, staff, and visitors. At the University of Minnesota, we don't just talk about this commitment, we work to be about this commitment. We're actively engaged in safety measures both on and around our campuses. In Minneapolis, we collaborate with the city to address safety issues. In addition to the daily coordination between the University of Minnesota Police Department, our ongoing commitment to safety on and around the Twin City campus includes visible support, such as our Dinkytown's off-campus safety center. Just last week on Friday evening, I participated in a safety walk and connected with students there, both in the safety center and in the community. The Safety Center, as well as programs like our Gopher Chauffeur, and our continued investments, the budget improved in June, had targeted funding for safety infrastructure and the recruitment and retention of public safety personnel. On that note, we look forward to welcoming Dr. Michael Davis as our new Assistant Vice President and Chief of Police for the University of Minnesota Department of Public Safety on the Twin Cities campus. He was announced earlier this week. Dr. Davis was selected following a comprehensive national search. His deep roots in public safety include oversight of a global 14-campus system at Northeastern University. He also served as the chief of police for Brooklyn Park Police Department here in Minnesota, where he helped reduce crime to a 22-year low. He is eager to return to Minnesota, and we are lucky to have him return. As the restless power, the University of Minnesota that improves lives, we will continue to lead and light the way in 2026. We will continue to be guided by our mission, our values, and our new strategic roadmap. Personally, I will continue to be guided by the question I posed on my inauguration: how can we do the greatest good for the University of Minnesota and for children and families across our state, nation, and world? I look to others who have modeled that behavior. Marilyn Stewart had an answer for that. A founder and forever champion of the University of Minnesota Rochester, Marilyn led the committee that secured approvals from the Minnesota legislature and the Board of Regents to establish our campus in Rochester. Then, from the time of the campus launch up until her death last month, she served on the Chancellor's Advisory and Advocacy Board through her 94th birthday, earning an honorary doctorate for impact. Marilyn was credited with saying, "Partnerships make anything possible." Her words were top of mind as Chancellor Carroll, Executive Vice President Greg Goldman, and I presented our vision for facilities and program expansion at the Destination Medical Center Board earlier this week in Rochester. Aligned with the university-wide strategic roadmap, Elevate Extraordinary, and the 2025 DMC Plan Update, this vision for this expansion, which will be made possible with partnerships, includes additional lab, classroom space, an academic building, and a student residential and recreation district. We'll have more updates on partnerships and this initiative in 2026. We also look forward to sharing more updates around health and healthcare in 2026, as mediation is now underway between the university, Fairview, and M Physicians. Something I can tell all of you now, our health and healthcare faculty and staff will have a place to work next year, and I am personally committed to finding a win-win-win solution for all three parties and for the state of Minnesota. Another way we will lead and light the way in 2026 is continuing to open the lines of communication throughout the university and beyond. We do this by maintaining our commitment to faculty forums and town halls, and Provost Ritter and I have really enjoyed many of these in this past fall. Increasing our engagement with students and student groups. This past month, I met both with the leaders across our fraternities, as well as with leaders and student groups in our Pell and First Generation group. Launching health and healthcare related context sessions and participating in the Association of American Universities, which provides a national level perspective as well as opportunities for exposure. When all of us communicate and connect, students, faculty, staff, and alumni, we become the energy for change. Altogether, we're a vital force for advancing our mission of research, scholarship, teaching, learning, outreach, public service, and improving the lives of Minnesotans. Thank you for your commitment to the University of Minnesota. This video, cue video, celebrates our first 174 years and looks forward to a bright future.
You don't become a world-class public research university overnight. At the University of Minnesota, we've been at it for 174 years. We now reach all corners of the state: Crookston, Duluth, Morris, Rochester, Twin Cities, and beyond. Our people have shaped us. Their accomplishments define us. From James Crash Ryan to Norman Borlaug, Ansel Keys to Jeanette Picard, Hubert H. Humphrey to Walter Mondale, Alan Page to Lori Gilday, and so many more. We are a place of firsts. Our innovations precede us, especially in medicine. With over 15,000 degrees each year and more than 640,000 alumni, cheerleading originated here, and there's been plenty to cheer about. We're a university of champions and home of the Axe. So let's cut to the chase. The University of Minnesota is not slowing down. We're accelerating. We are the vital force, the energy for change, pushing toward a future once unimaginable. We're turning learning into action and exploration into the breakthroughs that make our world more productive, safer, more sustainable. We'll train more healthcare professionals to keep ourselves even healthier and deepen connections within our communities, rural, urban, and tribal. Greatness requires partnership, and excellence draws a crowd. Our path forward begins now, and we need everyone on board.
Row the boat.
Sky Umag.
Go Gophers. Go Golden Eagles.
Go Bulldogs.
Go Cougars.
Go Rutgers!
Go University of Minnesota.
Forward to our future.
Woohoo! So, as you saw in the video, we are home of the Axe. And on a cold and snowy day on November afternoon, the Gophers defeated the Wisconsin Badgers to keep Paul Bunyan's Axe right here in Minnesota. To help us celebrate this achievement, I would like to welcome University of Minnesota Athletics Director Mark Coyle and Goldie Gopher. I believe there's an opportunity for photos with the Axe. So if we, I'm told we can pause for a 5-minute, that's up to you, Chair Hips.
Yes, let's pause for a few minutes and resume after brief.
What's that?
I said, because if we don't, Doug will do this.
Right. Director Coyle, come on over.
Okay, we are back in order. President Cunningham?
Yes, Director Mark Coyle reminded me that it's very important to note that under my administration, with the great partnership of Director Coyle, we were undefeated against Wisconsin. So, 2 years, 2-0. Yeah.
How you doing with Iowa? Just kidding.
Next year, we want Floyd of Rosedale,
I
too.
couldn't resist. Turning to my report, first I joined with President Cunningham in expressing optimism now that the university, along with Fairview and M physicians, have agreed to mediation. I remain encouraged that this process will preserve patient care, protect the mission of our state's sole public medical school, advance health care for all Minnesotans, and support our medical school and health sciences faculty. I would like to again thank President Cunningham and her team for their work and leadership on this critical issue. Given the importance of this, I'd like to give our vice chairs an opportunity to say a few words. Vice Chair Ruth Johnson.
Thank you, Chair Hipsch. I too am pleased that all three parties have agreed to mediation. This process is important, and each party must take the utmost care in ensuring that we get this right, not only for the future of the state's only public medical school, but for the future of healthcare delivery across Minnesota. As a practicing physician myself, I know there are three major functions of an academic medical center: practice, education, and research. Practice, do the expert care of our patients and continuity of care, which are vital. Education, we're educating the next generation of medical students, residents, and fellows, part of our current and future healthcare workforce. And research, critical research that drives new cures and transformative scientific understanding. If we do not strongly support these three core commitments, Minnesotans will pay the price for decades to come. The 6 schools of the academic health sciences, medicine, nursing, pharmacy, dentistry, public health, and veterinary medicine are absolutely essential to all Minnesotans. And I note that only 3 universities in this country have all 6 schools of that cluster. There is so much at stake, and we need to preserve and promote these schools for the sake of us all. And I'm confident that if we work together, all of us, we can secure the future of these programs.
Thank you, Chair Johnson. Vice Chair Wheeler.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Hips, and I appreciate this opportunity to speak to something so important. Last week, we were able to meet with the Attorney General Board leadership, and so appreciate the opportunity for us to enter into mediation to reach a solution that will serve the health of Minnesotans for generations to come. We need to agree on a model that provides sustainable funding for training the health professionals our state needs, supporting life-giving innovations, while also ensuring practice stability and long-term viability for Fairview, the win-win-win that President Cunningham has spoken to several times. Although the environment is quite challenging, the fragility of healthcare economics, workforce shortages, growing needs, including rural needs and areas, mental health needs, and care access for all, I'm remaining confident we can reach a negotiated agreement. This moment calls for us to focus on all our shared interests and work collaboratively to determine the best path forward. The very state of our health in our state depends on it. Thank you very much, Chair Hipsch.
Thank you, Vice Chair Wheeler. As we enter mediation in good faith, let me amplify our confidence that working together for Minnesota, we can come to an agreement that sets us on a path to fulfill our public mission, supports our faculty, staff, and students, and as partners with M physicians in Fairview, ensures continued high-quality care for our patients for years to come. Turning to the rest of my report, let me share some highlights of the work we accomplished together this fall. As we prepared to start the new academic year, we welcomed our 4 new colleagues. Thank you. I am really appreciative of all the work you are doing to get up to speed so quickly. We approved our new university strategic plan, Elevate Extraordinary 2030. As you saw in the video a few moments ago, there's a great energy behind this plan. The board held 2 active learning days, which included tours and time to engage directly with faculty, staff, and students In September, we visited St. Paul. In November, the academic health sciences. I want to thank everyone involved in preparing for us and for participating in those visits. To close, I'm continually impressed by the work that the faculty, staff, and students contribute to this great institution. I hope you all have a safe and wonderful holiday season. That concludes my report. We will next turn to our next agenda item, which is item number 5. It's the receive and file reports, which includes the virtual forum comments leaked in the docket. Next, we will turn to the reports of the Senate consultative committees. With us today are Professors Perry Leo, Chair of the Senate Consultative Committee and Faculty Consultative Committee. Rosemary Burns Velez, Chair of the Civil Service Consultative Committee. Tony Apps, Chair of the P&A Consultative Committee, and Dominic Scuvula, Chair of the Students Consultative Committee. Are they here? Yep, there they are. You can come on down. Apologize for our noisy heating system here. It's getting fixed. It's in the process of getting fixed, but right now it's kind of noisy. So thank you for coming up, and Chair Leo, you can start when you're ready.
Great. Chair Hitch, members of the board, thank you for the opportunity to present this report to the Board of Regents. As you've heard, my name is Perry Leo. I'm a professor and department head in aerospace engineering and mechanics in the College of Science and Engineering. I've been at the University of Minnesota since 1988, and I've been department head for about 12 years. This is my 3rd year on the Faculty Consultative Committee / Senate Consultative Committee, and my first as chair and my last. Before I begin, I want to thank my colleagues on the FCC and SCC, as well as all the senators I've spoken to this summer and fall. I want to thank my vice chair, Professor Tim Johnson, for his help and support this fall. The Senate office staff, in particular Amber Bathke and Lori Cooper-Stoll, are absolutely invaluable to anyone who's trying to do this job without losing their mind completely. Finally, I want to thank Provost Ritter, President Cunningham, and their staffs for all their engagement and support this fall. As we all know, these have been tumultuous times for higher education and for shared governance. The uncertainty over research funding, the changes in priorities from the current administration in areas including DEI, student scholarship support, and attempts by some state governments to neutralize some faculty voices have all added a lot of stress to faculty, staff, and students throughout the country. We are grateful that some of the worst of this has not come to Minnesota, and we acknowledge and appreciate the support for university governance from President Cunningham, Provost Ritter, and all of you. On top of the national issues, there are a number of local stressors here at Minnesota. Among these are the uncertainty surrounding the future of the medical school and academic health complex, the continuing transition to central services as part of the peak process, the ongoing unhappiness among some faculty with the Regents' actions on unit statements, and the changes in university leadership and the loss of a great deal of institutional knowledge over the past year. People, and I speak primarily for faculty, but I think it's safe to include staff as well, are anxious about the future, and this has had real consequences for our interactions with each other and with university leadership. I think one can look at the failure of the Core Curriculum 2025 as an example of a decision by the Senate that was influenced, at least in part, by the negative climate. With that as my preamble, I want to turn to some of what the university and faculty senates have been discussing. The first is trust. We have spent a lot of time, both in committees and in the full Senate, discussing trust. As mentioned above, this is a national issue and was the topic of much discussion at the recent Big Ten Academic Alliance meeting of Big Ten Plus faculty senate chairs and staff. At the October 23rd University Senate meeting, we had an open discussion on trust in the context of shared governance at this institution and how we keep productive lines of communication open among each other and between the senates and the administration, the Board of Regents, and the public. The discussion revealed the challenges of developing trust between the different senates, where there are real power differences between tenured faculty and staff, for example. The discussion also revealed continuing dissatisfaction over the Board of Regents' March 2025 resolution related to the response to the President's Task Force on Institutional Speech report. It's long. There are many faculty who feel strongly that this resolution and the lack of clear standards as to what can and can't be posted as unit statements is antithetical to their academic freedom. To be clear, I personally have very mixed feelings about unit statements, and I cannot imagine a situation that I would be supportive if my department wanted to draft one. Regardless, I do believe that the board resolution was a blow to trust from shared governance, given the work of the Academic Freedom and Tenure Committees and the Task Force on Institutional Speech to craft a compromise solution. I also believe the board resolution puts the president in the challenging position of having to make decisions as to what classes of statements are and aren't allowed. The next topic is term faculty and academic professionals. As my predecessor, Jen Goodnow, shared in the spring, there has been a multi-year focus in shared governance concerning term faculty and P&A instructional staff. This is a topic that, much like the workforce reinvestment resolution, has great potential to be a win for all parties. Work to date includes a statement from the Term Faculty and Academic Professionals Subcommittee that was approved by the FCC and Faculty Senate. A task force sponsored by the Academic Freedom and Tenure Committee also submitted a report to the Senate that was tabled last spring and hopefully will be discussed again at one of the spring Senate meetings. Finally, Beth Lewis and Ola Graham in the Provost's office have been working on these issues. There are differences in the reports about the best path to improve employment conditions for P&A instructional staff and term faculty, and by that I mean clear paths to promotion, multi-year contracts, etc., and also to guarantee academic freedom in the classroom. There is, however, broad consensus that the University of Minnesota could do better in these areas. Success will likely require some support from the board, as the current tenure code restricts the use of teaching faculty to certain special circumstances which don't always apply in the world we live in. Next topic is resolutions. At the October 23rd Senate meeting, the University Senate passed a resolution by a vote of 123 to 18 opposing the Compact for Academic Excellence in Higher Education. The administration responded to this resolution by noting that, quote, any decision needed over this and similar matters will remain firmly rooted in our land-grant mission and our values. We appreciate this response and the administration and board's engagement on these issues. At the December 4th Senate meeting, the Senate considered a resolution asking that the administration share their protocol in cases where threats are made against a member of the university community. This resolution stemmed from a death threat against a Twin Cities faculty member in late September. Again, we appreciate the support from you and the administration on this resolution. And finally, earlier this week, it's just writing these things weeks in advance is almost impossible because writing them hours in advance may not even be correct. Earlier this week, the Senate passed a resolution calling for continued negotiations with Fairview, and we are heartened, as all of you are, to see that this is happening now. The strategic plan. The FCC, SCC, and Senates have had several discussions with administrators about the strategic plan framework that the board discussed in November. There was robust discussion about what should and shouldn't be in the plan, often, and you won't be surprised, reflecting one's personal research interests. There was also gratitude that the work of governance on workforce reinvestment was a significant part of the roadmap. We look forward to working with Provost Ritter and the college deans to flesh out the roadmap at the campus and college level. Medical school. The FCC and SCC have had discussions on the ongoing situation regarding the future of the medical school. While shared governance includes senators from the medical school, my observation over my years on FCC is that there is a disconnect between medical school health science faculty and faculty in other colleges. Put simply, I know far more about the job of my colleagues in the music department than I know about those in the surgery department, and you don't want me doing either music or surgery. While acknowledging the importance of continued discussion among Fairview, UMP, and the university, we also view this as an opportunity to improve shared governance by better communication between the groups on either side of Washington Avenue. In the long run, this will not only improve shared governance, but could also enhance research and teaching collaborations between the health sciences and other colleges, schools, and campuses. And finally, in addition to the larger issues mentioned above, the FCC and SCC continue to hear from administrators about new policies or policy changes at the university Among these are academic appointments with teaching functions, brand policy, appointments of academic professionals and administrative employees, animals on campus, and the policy involving research the policy on research involving human participants. We've also discussed a number of HR policies that require changes due to the new Minnesota Paid Leave Act going into effect at the beginning of the year. This concludes my report. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you. Okay, Chair Burns-Velez.
Thank you. Chair, sorry, I'm not sure how to pronounce your name.
That's Hipsch.
Hipt. Thank you, Chair Hipt. I am in a position of having not been a chair-elect before becoming chair, because our chair was in a unit that was eliminated in the fall. So I kind of had a field promotion, so I'm not that good and I don't understand all of the rules. But I'm going to go through my list that I already presented to you. First, I want to just take a second to talk about civil service. There are actually 3 different staff employee groups at the university. We have bargaining unit represented, P&A employees, and civil service employees. Civil service has been with the university the longest. We were created in 1945. Unfortunately, civil service recently has been experiencing a bit of attrition, and that has affected our membership in our consultative committee and in the University Senate and in the Civil Service Senate. So when I came in this year, we sat down in our first meeting and talked about what our priorities were going to be. We came up with 5 priorities. The first and most important is that we had to recruit new members. We were down to 4 members on the University Senate. Our Civil Service Senate, which is a separate body, still had a decent number of members, but it was low as well. So we have been, if you want to do anything, you actually have to have people there to do things with you. And so we have been working on this. We have increased our numbers in the University Senate to 12 at this point. We just did a special election. We have 18 nominations. The ballot is going out today. It has to be open for 30 days, but at the end of that, I expect that we will have full membership. I only have 1 year to do this work, and the main focus that I have is to leave my chair-elect with a sound and whole body to work with. He has been spending most of his time working on professional development, and he's been really just running with that. He's been working with the P&A Senate to create more professional development opportunities for both groups, and I think that's been amazing. And his name is, you'll know him next year, Daryl Richard Lawrence, and I'm sure he'll do an amazing job. He's going to be able to hit the ground running. We also, our second priority was a leadership succession plan. In the past, we had co-chairs for all of our subcommittees, and a co-chair system doesn't work very well because it's hard for each of those 2 people to think about who's in charge, who's following orders, who does what, and it tends to fall apart over time. Our subcommittees had also been decimated a bit. We had some that only had 2 members. So now we are at a place where we have both a chair and a chair-elect for our 3 subcommittees, and all of them have full membership. They've been doing amazing work. This, as Perry said, is a little bit old. I gave a report on our subcommittees. Our Rules Committee is right now working on the same changes to the Minnesota Family Leave Law, and that actually goes into huge, it's like a spider web through all of our rules, and they've been rewriting our rules to get those in line with the changes that are coming with that. Our Comp and Benefits Subcommittee has also been working on that, as well as getting wellness points for any of the professional development that we do for our group or for P&A. And then our last group is the Outreach and Communications. They got a our first newsletter out, that was the group that was down to 2 members. They got our first newsletter out, and it was amazing. It had fresh news instead of old reprocessed news, which was really great. I mean, and they've also been helping us get the word out about, recruitment and getting people to join our Senate. And then my last 2 items, we haven't yet made a lot of progress on job code and seniority refinement. We're aiming to just address a market realignment and classification clarity, because there's a lot of changes due to peak in people's job codes, and how does that affect their seniority? How does it affect their pay, et cetera, et cetera. And the last item, which we haven't actually touched on at all, the Compensation and Benefits Committee is working on advocating for compensation, particularly through the workforce reinvestment that was passed, I think, 2 years ago. Yeah. And I think that concludes what I have. Did anyone have any questions?
We'll save questions for the end.
Oh,
but
for
thank
the
you.
end. Okay, see, like I said.
Chair Apps?
Excuse me, Chair Hipsch, members of the board, thank you for having me here to speak today on behalf of the Professional and Administrative Senate. My name is Tony Apps, the chair of the Professional Administrative, or P&A, Consultative Committee. I'm also the director of the Graduate School's Educational Policy Office. I'm here today representing more than 7,700 professional and administrative employees from across the University of Minnesota. In my report, I'd like to tell you who P&A employees are, what we do, and what our Senate members have been hearing from our constituents. P&A employees work in all 20 job families throughout the university as researchers, lecturers, administrators, and frankly, too many titles to name here today. Every day we conduct research, teach students, manage budgets and departments, and conduct outreach to citizens across the state. Despite these contributions to mission-critical work, we continue to hear the narrative that the university has too many administrators. We wish to dispel this narrative and showcase the necessity of our work conducted by employees with specialized skill sets, employees who help the university and the entire state of Minnesota to elevate extraordinary. This includes employees like Rachel, who directs the university's CARE program. The CARE program provides critical support to students, some of whom are struggling with food and housing insecurity, who have experienced serious personal traumas, or even those potentially at risk to themselves or others in the community. Or Jessica, the director of the B Squad, the education and outreach team that supports the work of the B Lab on the St. Paul campus. From managing private and corporate partnerships through their B Network program to piloting the urban green space study, the B Squad provides support to pollinators and those who wish to protect them. That's my little flourish. That's not necessarily endorsed. Unfortunately, this work isn't always seen or noticed. However, it is important work that happens across our campuses and our state every day to ensure that the university and the community continue to thrive. Our P&A Senate, led by the P&A Consultative Committee, is composed of nearly 100 senators and alternates, all driven employees who volunteer their time to university governance, partnering with leadership and other Senate bodies to ensure that the University of Minnesota continues to be a gold standard place of employment and student success. In the last year, PAC leadership has worked to expand our reach and connect with key partners to make better support for our constituents. We strive to ensure that all available seats on university-wide committees that can be held by P&A employees are filled. We meet regularly with our HR partners to elevate concerns we hear from our employees and to ensure that P&A has a voice on those issues directly impacting our constituents. And then additionally, as Rosemary mentioned, our P&A policy pop-ups have continued to be a widely attended event. Those attract hundreds of attendees at each event, thousands over the course of an academic year. These events are hosted by our Professional Development and Engagement Subcommittee and have recently hosted topics such as Indigenous research policy, university travel policies, and working with the Office of Conflict Resolution, to name a few. As of this year, these webinars qualify participating employees for points in the university's wellness program. I'd like to conclude by sharing a bit about the concerns that I and my chair-elect Molly Benzik have been hearing from our constituents. Employees are concerned about the national landscape and support for higher education. Fears of program curtailment and funding cuts threaten to impact staff, P&A staff potentially disproportionately, and the future feels a bit uncertain. Many constituents also report feeling stuck in their roles without clear pathways for development and promotion. P&A employees are eager to be active participants in the university's future and seek more ways to grow into our roles. Units across the university work in a variety of modalities, serving our students, staff, and faculty effectively from across Minnesota and across the world. However, we risk losing some of this talented workforce if we don't remain flexible to employee needs. I urge leaders across the university to consider equity and employee needs when enacting any wide-ranging return to campus policies. Finally, rising costs and inflation continue to be a concern for P&A employees, with parking, childcare, dining, and health insurance, to name a few, costing more. We hope that even in challenging budgetary years, the administration continues to support merit increases for employees as well as dedicated funding for equity adjustments. Before I close, I'd like to say a thank you to President Cunningham for the work that she has been doing with Senate leadership to improve the way we function and to build trust in our processes. I'd also like to extend an open invitation on behalf of PAC to any regents who would like to join us for a future P&A Consultative Committee meeting to learn more about what we do. We'd be honored to host you, so please feel free to reach out at any time. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Epps. Okay, Chair Scuvula.
Close.
Scavulo.
Scavulo, there you go.
Third time's the charm, sorry.
Chair Hips and members of the board, my name is Dominic Scavulo. I am the chair of the Student Senate Consultative Committee. And on behalf of the entire Student Senate, my vice chair, Andrew Kornitz, and Ranking Senator Anna Manchik, and Ranking Senator-elect Samuel Gruss, thank you for having us here today and including students in this representative process. A little bit of background on the Student Senate. We have roughly 70,000 constituents across all 5 U of M campuses, including Morris, Rochester, Duluth, and Crookston, as well as the Twin Cities. I'll speak a little bit about some of the actions we've taken so far this year. The Student Senate has passed 2 resolutions, one being our internal committee's governing document, which has created 5 new internal committees of the Student Senate, which are the Rules Committee, Health and Wellness, Student Engagement, Basic Needs, and Legislative Ambassadors. We're excited for the work that those committees are going to be doing for us, and they should see their first meetings in the coming weeks and are ready to hit the ground running in the spring semester. Speaking a little bit of last year's Student Senate goals and how we continue to move those forward, our relationship with the President's office has been incredibly strong, and thank you, President Cunningham, for that. And as well as her Assistant Chief of Staff, Jamie Larson. Jamie's been amazing to work with so far, and we're looking forward to continuing that in the spring semester. One of the major advocacy points for the Student Senate last year was the suicide prevention barrier on the Washington Avenue Bridge, which was directly related to health and wellness of students. And we're excited for the Health and Wellness Committee to continue that advocacy in other aspects of student life. Another key point for last year's Student Senate was engagement and the filling of our vacant seats. We tend to see many vacant seats at the conclusion of elections, and then they get filled roughly early November for the remainder of the term. That continued to be the situation this year. We're hoping that our Student Engagement Committee will do solid work to increase election turnout and candidacy in those elections so we don't have those vacancies starting the new term. In addition, I'll share that we do have a bill currently in progress to transition any vacant seats after the first 2 meetings of the Student Senate into at-large seats. Currently, seats are apportioned to specific colleges at specific campuses. However, when it's not possible to fill those seats after the first 2 meetings, by transitioning to at-large seats, we'll be able to reach students who are able and willing to serve on the Student Senate to operate at a full capacity. Excuse me. Last year, Student Senate leadership visited campuses across the system. We're continuing that this year. So far, my vice chair and ranking senator and I have visited University of Minnesota Crookston and the University of Minnesota Duluth. It was a great experience for me going to both of those places and going up to their their stomping grounds up in Duluth. Both Andy and Anna are from Duluth. And they visited here at the Twin Cities for our October meeting. That concludes what I have. Thank you so much.
Thank you to all of you. I just want to personally relay my gratitude for all that you do. And our model of shared governance really does work. And we're all in this together, the national landscape, whatever it is. We're in this together, and we have to pull together. And that doesn't mean we have to agree on everything, because we won't. Since the dawn of time, I don't think everybody's agreed on everything. But we agree on most things, and that's what we need to concentrate on, because we agree on most things, we agree on where we want to go. And so I appreciate that. And now I'd like to open up the discussion for any of my colleagues or the president. So.
Thank you, Chair Hipsch. Thank you so much for coming today. And I just want to add, my gratitude. I see the, hundreds of hours of work that you are doing to really have meaningful shared governance, and the work on your committees, and the work in a time, as you mentioned, Dr. Leo, across the country that's complicated with shared governance. And I can feel those improvements beginning to happen in all of our work together. And I just want you to know how committed I and my administration are, continue to do that good and hard work when we agree and when we don't disagree, but we're stronger with our shared governance. And I know personally how much each of you and your teams are working, as well as the faculty, staff, and student senate. So just thank you so much, and I look forward to the ongoing work this year.
Thank you, President. Regent Bergstrom.
Thank you, Chair Hipsch. A note of thanks, as well as a bit of point of personal privilege. I had the great honor of serving as the Student Senate Chair for 2 years when I was an undergraduate student at the Twin Cities, and also was a P&A employee for a few years. And so I've had the good fortune of being around your roles, and I have a deep appreciation for all that you do, not only as a student and as faculty and staff, but in your work in this shared governance model. It doesn't add to your pay, it adds to your workload, and I deeply appreciate it. And also, I just want to acknowledge individually, not necessarily on behalf of the board, but some of your notes of trepidation amongst the people you represent, given leadership transitions over the past year, and of course the national landscape. I hear you. That's a lot, and I think I certainly, and I think the board are here with you and understand that. So thank you for all you do.
Any other discussion? Well, I thank you all for coming, and keep on doing the good work that you do. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, next we'll review the University Performance and Accountability Report, which outlines the ways in which we are delivering on our mission. The annual report provides the board with the information needed to carry out our accountability role and fulfills the reporting requirement established in the university's charter. The report is before us for review today and will return for action in February. President Cunningham and Provost Ritter, will you review the draft for us? President Cunningham, would you like to start?
Thank you, Chair Hipsch, and welcome, Provost Ritter. University-wide and throughout our 5 distinct campuses, the University of Minnesota is committed to meeting the needs of students in our state while living up to our tripartite mission. And this commitment, as well as our charter, compels us to set meaningful metrics and examine progress on a regular basis. It's important to note that our University Progress report card is distinct yet intertwined with the accountability metrics for our strategic roadmap. And I know in past years those have been combined, and this year we are separating them out so that there's university metrics that should just always be examined regardless of the particular goals or imperatives of a strategic roadmap. And then there's also specific metrics and goals around the strategic roadmap. Some of those overlap, as should perhaps be expected, but they are distinct and they're presented in a distinct way. I'll also note this is a review and action item, and so we're looking here for feedback and input. and also acknowledging the tremendous additional workload this fall of my team with pressing national and matters around our health. This is in an area ready for review. There are some components of it that we recognize need a little bit more work as well, and we will bring back to you a final, obviously for your input and action in February, and we'll continue to work on it in the meantime. For more details on the work already underway, it's my pleasure to turn it over to Executive Vice President and Provost Gretchen Ritter.
Thank you. Thank you, President Cunningham, Chair Hips, and members of the board. I'm pleased to present for your review a draft of the 2025-26 University Performance and Accountability Report. For those of you who may not be aware, the requirements for this report are actually spelled out in the university's charter from 1851 and outlines that the Regents make a report annually to the legislature, a number of items, including the number of professors and students, the amount of expenditures, and such other information as they may deem proper. The report has undergone many revisions over the past 175 years. Most recently, the report was very closely tied to the goals and metrics of MPAC 2025, the system-wide strategic plan, the predecessor to Elevate Extraordinary 2030. As you will see in the next presentation on today's agenda, the university plans to track progress and metrics unique to the strategic roadmap. This provides us with the opportunity to reimagine this annual accountability report in ways that we can identify trends and metrics important to the university in a more long-term perspective. As we do each December, we bring today's draft report for your review only. The final report will come before you for action in February. Between now and then, we intend to gather further data, including comparison data between the university and our peer institutions, incorporate any corrections noted in our final proofreading, or adjustments driven by today's conversation. The draft report consists of 3 parts: campuses at a glance, peer institution comparisons, and a progress card on key institutional metrics. The Campus at a Glance section provides most of the aforementioned material as required by the charter. Each page includes campus-level data, such as student enrollment numbers, the numbers of degrees awarded, number of faculty and employees, and total expenditures. The next section includes each campus's 6-year and 4-year graduation rates as compared to several peer institutions. This information is not made publicly available until January of each year, so this will be added to the final draft of the report in February. The final element of the report includes the University Progress Card, which reports on several metrics in a number of key categories. As you will see in the report, many of the categories of focus in this progress card center on student-centric metrics, as well as other important institutional criteria, such as philanthropy, research, and institutional impact. For those of you familiar with the previous iterations of the report, some of these metrics should look familiar. We will track common metrics such as 4- and 6-year graduation rates, first-year retention rates, annual research expenditures, and then other more recent data such as attitudes regarding campus climate. But as mentioned before, we also have the opportunity to chart a new course and track metrics that will be important for our progress ahead. This is why we are also including some metrics regarding faculty tenure rates, philanthropy, sustainability, and multiple areas of other institutional impact. We hope to be able to not only measure the impact that the university has on the state, but also attempt to assess the university's perception and reputation as an institution. Many of these proposed metrics are new ideas, and the university plans to develop new or improved methods for tracking them year over year. That is the reason that you see in many of these categories the label "in develop." in development for many of those cells. Before we get to questions, I want to acknowledge all of those who have worked over the past few months and continue to work to gather this data. It's been such a complete revision of what we've done before that it has taken an enormous amount of effort for people to start developing the kind of data that we see as appropriate for this new report card. So a special thanks to many of the people in institutional analysis, enterprise data management and reporting, marketing communications, senior staff from my office and the Office of the President, and many other university offices for all their work to get us here today. With that, Mr. Chair and President Cunningham, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you for your presentation. Are there any questions or discussion? Well, I'll just start off. Yeah, you're new to the job, but historically, do you have any idea what kind of feedback we get and from who on this report? And like who's reading it and who, you know, are we getting feedback?
I could, since, if I may, Chair Hipsch and Provost, since I do appreciate that the Provost, this has been a major task of hers also in her first 4 months here, to put this together. So I think there's two reasons, there's multiple reasons to do a report like this. So one of them is that the legislator, I don't believe when I've asked that we get feedback on it necessarily from the legislator. But I think the other reason to do this report is we simply should be having an accounting every year, both across my team and certainly for the board's review of how we are doing as a university. And so, you know, my belief as well is, of course, important and written into statute that this goes forth. What's the real importance of this is how we should all be aware and accountable for things like our 4-year and 6-year graduation rate, you know, our amount of research expenditures, et cetera. All good universities track those. We should be tracking those. And, you know, we are leaning into both the measures that were tracked before as well as measures that we know are important for any university to examine and understand about themselves so that we can make real corrections. And I do want to know, we didn't present all the details here, but they are in your board book. There's a lot more detail. So just to be clear, we presented a very high level, but there's a number of details in there. And again, these things shouldn't be particularly surprising in many ways. They're the things that great, you know, good universities need to track themselves on.
Thank you. Anybody else have any questions? Regent Lugar.
Thanks so much, Chair Hipsch, and thank you, Provost Ritter, for all the work and the teams that have put the work into this. I think it's really excellent. I am curious if there's been thought about how to evaluate, measure the reputational, you know, impact of the university, and I'm sure that's in progress, so I don't know if there's much to comment on now, but I do think that's important.
I believe we're thinking in terms of surveys, but I wonder, Chris, if you'd like to comment as well.
Regent Lugar, Chair Hipsch, yes, we are. We're going to include a metric on overall brand performance across the state, how people perceive the University of Minnesota brand on various dimensions, including reputational issues, and it helps us ensure as we activate the refresh of the brand and navigate through complexity on issues that we're on the right side of how people perceive the university broadly.
And I would just add that one of the questions that we'll be taking a look at is, would you recommend the university for a prospective student?
May I add, Chair Hipsch? Yes. I believe, Provost Ritter, it's slightly different than the reputational question that Vice President Gotti is talking about, but there's also, as we presented to the board this past year, input on the number of our programs that are in the top level, the number of programs that have risen to the top level or fallen from. Can you speak on that a little bit?
Sure. So we're looking at programs that are kind of ranked top 20, and there are different global rankings, national rankings that you can look at for that. But beyond just a single snapshot, we want to know kind of what's happening over time, right? Are there ones that have fallen out? Are there ones that are new? If there are ones that are falling out, then we need to, of course, go and say, what's happened here?
And if I could just offer, it builds on existing work, expands it, and integrates it into this report in places it hasn't been historically.
Okay. Anybody else have anything? Otherwise, thank you very much, and we'll look forward to February. Thanks. Okay. Our next item is to review the draft metrics that we'll use to measure our progress toward achieving the Elevate Extraordinary 2030 University Strategic Plan. Joining President Cunningham to present this item is Vice President for Strategic Initiatives, Ryan Schmiesing. President Cunningham, would you like to begin?
Thank you, Chair Hipsch. In previous discussions with the board about our strategic roadmap, Elevate Extraordinary 2030, we were rightly asked about how we will measure success. Today, we're coming back to you with an update on how we're approaching this work. Key considerations include establishing metrics, proposed metrics for our schools, colleges, and campuses, each of them will then be reporting up on. Identifying what will be different in 5 years at the biggest picture, what will be different if we implement this roadmap fully in 5 years in each of the areas. Building awareness and understanding among leaders so that they're equipped to integrate the roadmap into their communications and strategic planning. And so for more on this roadmap we're developing, the report we're developing, it's my pleasure to turn it over to our Vice President for Strategic Initiatives, Ryan Schmiesing.
Thank you, Chair Hipsch, Regents, President Cunningham. Today we are sharing work to date on the development of success measures for the strategic roadmap that you approved last month. The approval of the Elevate Extraordinary 2030 Strategic Roadmap sets a clear course for the University of Minnesota. Our work is now focused on operationalizing this vision, which includes identifying clear success metrics with a key question of what will be, in fact, different in 5 years. As you know, we have organized our strategy around 5 strategic imperatives, and I want to highlight some of those measures we have identified. First, as a reminder, we have 20 action teams forming, working to operationalize the key early actions. They identify process metrics or outputs for each of the focus areas and success metrics, all of which is in your materials today. Our first imperative is to prepare students to be fully engaged and active in our state, nation, and world. We have 4 focus areas that focus on engaging students in programs to develop and strengthen their skills, to engage in dialogue with each other and the community, to developing skills that will prepare them for their careers, to creating a more seamless experience across all 5 campuses, all while focusing on the critical issues surrounding mental health and food insecurity. Focusing on 2 of those focus areas, we aim to cultivate engaged community members by measuring the percentage of students who can identify core civic skills and feel comfortable and competent engaging in dialogue and public issues. We are committed to making experiential and immersive learning a defining strength for a University of Minnesota student experience. Our goal is that every student graduates having at least one substantive immersive learning experience. We know that we must address financial barriers, continue developing strong partners with the community broadly, and recognize that the more of these experiences students have, the better prepared they will be. Our second imperative is to innovate to transform the future of learning. At the October Mission Fulfillment Committee meeting, Regents heard firsthand about the excellent work already underway. We have a documented history of working across disciplinary boundaries to conduct research, partnering with communities, and developing courses and academic programs that best prepare our students for post-graduation. Our goal is to track the percentage of students who enrolled in and successfully complete interdisciplinary taught courses at the university. In October, when you heard about our growing innovative approach to teaching and learning, my colleagues and our students shared examples of how that is brought to life at the university. We have cohorts of faculty in the College of Education and Human Development, a department in the College of Biological Sciences, and an entire campus in Rochester where there is active, real-time research and implementation of best practices on how students learn and how we best meet them where they are. And these are just some of the examples of what is happening at the university. Ultimately, the University of Minnesota will be recognized as a national resource for learning research and innovative models of teaching and learning. The third imperative, serve communities through knowledge creation and exchange in the arts, health, healthcare, and the economy, is crucial to our mission. We are fortunate at the university to have faculty and staff that not only understand the importance of engaging with community and tribal nations, but do it really well. From the arts to design to health to healthcare to economic development and all things in between, this university has been and will continue to partner externally in mutually beneficial ways. To continue our quest of meeting the critical healthcare needs of Minnesota, especially in rural areas, we will increase the number of graduates in the health sciences. And as we often reference, this will be from doctors to nurses to public health specialists to veterinarians and more. We are a university uniquely positioned when it comes to mapping and spatial technologies. Community partners, collaborators, and leading experts in the field, some right here at the University of Minnesota, all recognize the work we do and the impact it has. By leveraging our expertise in mapping and spatial technologies, we believe very strongly that the University of Minnesota will be recognized as the spatial university internationally and within U.S. higher education. Our faculty are on the leading edge of discoveries, innovations, performances, and exhibitions. The fourth imperative is to advance our excellence to lead in the discovery and application of sustainable solutions, improving environmental, human, plant, and animal health. To be clear, this is not the only imperative that speaks to our discovery, innovation, and creative expression excellence. It is found throughout all imperatives. And in this imperative specifically, we highlight priority areas of opportunity. It's well known that the University of Minnesota is highly regarded for our work across the dimensions of sustainability. We will continue to track our global impact by the rankings in the Times Higher Education for Sustainability Impact categories. It's not just our desire to maintain rankings, but to strategically invest where we can have the greatest impact for the people of this state and beyond. Over the past year, members of the board have heard about AI, its potential impact or actual impact on society and our everyday lives. The university has been engaged in developing AI models, studying the impact on people, places, and environments, and partnering with health, healthcare, and agricultural businesses in the community and organizations and many others to implement new practices, procedures, models, or to drive discovery. To advance the frontiers of AI, we aim for recognized national leadership in priority AI subfields with increased number of faculty and growth in our extramural funding. Finally, to secure our future as a world-class university, we must strategically invest in our talent and infrastructure. The fifth imperative presents a significant opportunity to continue our work on creating an environment that allows us to retain and attract the very best talent, the people that make the University of Minnesota what it is and all that it can be. Specifically, our success will be measured by the implementation of administration-approved recommendations from the Workforce Investment Report. This work, as you know, is already well underway. Earlier this year, many of you visited the St. Paul campus, a place that is a cornerstone of this great university. Alumni speak fondly of their experiences, but also acknowledge there are assets that look and feel the same as they did 30 years ago. Planning is well underway to begin to address the critical needs on the St. Paul campus so that future students, current and future faculty and staff, and the community may benefit from all that it has to offer. Success will be measured by the implementation and/or demonstrated progress on the St. Paul Campus Working Group recommendations, including student center and housing. Finally, to conclude, I'll remind at the next meeting, we'll come back to this group with a refined and final set of success measures that will provide a view into what will be different in 5 years at the University of Minnesota. Thank you.
Thank you much. President Cunningham.
Yes, thank you again, Vice President Schmeezing. Just a couple of things to attention. Again, these are just some examples, a lot more detail in the book. Some of these things will be measured by multiple measures, including the big impact of what we think will be different over time. Also, I just want to highlight both in this and in Provost Ritter's presentation, some of what needs to happen here, both for the university accountability metrics and for this. Some of this we can draw on existing data sources for, and some of this we have to develop the data sources for how we will measure this. Even in the university accountability report, and I think there's some things there which we would expect to have had data on that we do not have data on here. And so, at the university level, we will be working then. And so I just want people to understand under the hood of getting some of those metrics, for example, and I'm going back to the university accountability report, requires the provost to work with our institutional data people, to work across the schools. There's like mechanics in how we're going to build some of that data infrastructure to get some of the data that we know we need and would be typical to have to understand the university and then be able to course correct and make adjustments over time. So that's back end work in addition to just sort of putting a number together for a report in a year from now. And that's real lift to do across those groups this year. The same is true for the Elevate Extraordinary. Some of these are data that we can collect. Some of this will be additional work that we will combine into other surveys or other data infrastructure for how we look at things. But it's not just which data marker to pick, it's whether we have that and whether we have the capability to get it over the next time that we're working on.
Thank you, President Cunningham. Is there any discussion or comments from any board members? Regent Verhalen.
Thank you, Chair Hipsch, and thank you for the very detailed presentation, which has even more detail in our board book. I did want to revisit one of the slides you went through today, advancing our excellence to lead in the discovery and application of sustainable solutions. The sub-bullet, invest in field-defining research to advance the frontiers of AI, a piece that at least I hope is not lost in that is it's the imperative, or that it is imperative for graduates, learners, faculty, everyone interacting with AI, that we're able to help them be proficient in its use, but also in its limitations, the benefits of the efficiencies that can be gained with AI, but also the risks of over-reliance. I equate it a lot to, Wikipedia became a new thing during my education. I'm not going to say which year, but during the course of my education, and there was a lot of emphasis put on there on how do you verify that the source is correct? How do you make sure that what you're getting is real information? All of those kinds of things, and I think that's so important because in addition to advancing the frontiers of AI, making sure that we've built the structure so that those who the university is interfacing with, interacting with, et cetera, have those tools and skills necessary to use it in a not only useful way, but a meaningful and ethical way.
Thank you, Regent Verhalen, Chair Hipsch. Just an observation on that. You are 100% right that the teaching and learning component, the professional development component, the additional research around AI and its impact in society shows up in a number of different places in the materials. It's in, I think, the first imperative around how we best prepare students. So we'll see it in there. We see it actually in Imperative 5 for our own workforce. But across the university, what starts to emerge in these types of conversations when you have a roadmap like this is people begin to identify the work they're doing that aligns. And we know that we have faculty across the university and many colleges doing research on the types of things you're talking about, on the impact that AI is having on people in their lives, their learning, what they do every day, the impact it's having on the environment and society and how we interact. But there's also an enormous amount of work, and I think we are all trying to play catch up in higher ed on the impact in the classroom. Students coming to higher education with different experiences, faculty learning about it and how it gets integrated. There's policy around this, there's procedure around it, so a lot of work happening in that space.
Thank you. Secretary Steves?
Mr. Chair, members of the board, I just thought that it's actually helpful to provide just a little bit of context on as we have these discussions about metrics. And that is that higher education is a latecomer to being eagerly embracing metrics. In fact, it was a decade ago, 2015, that this board required the administration to adopt something called the progress card at that time. And the difference between the accountability report, which looks back at data and says, here is the data, this is how we have performed. The progress card is different, and it's morphing across time, and I think this administration has been doing a really good job of diving in, evaluating, reevaluating, thinking about what's the right metric now that, maybe it wasn't the right, maybe a metric from 10 years ago isn't the right metric now, and that's good work to be doing. But the difference is prospective goals associated with metrics. What this board did, and it was then Chair Rick Beeson in 2015 that drove this really hard, to get the administration to adopt concrete goals attached to metrics, because the board knew that by setting goals associated with metrics, it would drive performance. And that's the difference. Higher ed has loved data for a long time, and they've generated lots of data as an institution across time. And so this has always been a data-rich environment. What's different is, and what the board imposed and what is now becoming codified as kind of the standard, is associating goals with with those metrics so that you actually change performance and you actually move the organization to a different place. This is something, you know, the private sector knew a long time ago. It's just higher ed, you know, it was a latecomer to it. And, but now, a decade into it, you're actually seeing results from it. And so as this new plan gets adopted and as metrics get associated with it that have tangible goals and outcomes associated with it, it actually will drive performance. It has been driving performance in the past. And so that's the different thing. And so it all seems like this is just standard and rote and everything now. This is a decade old. That's how long this has been happening at the University of Minnesota, and it was driven by this board. And so when you're engaging around this, know that it's your predecessors that did this, so that you now are inheriting a situation where the culture is such that goals are attached to these metrics and it drives performance forward. So I thought that was helpful for you.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Does anybody else have any, Vice Chair Wheeler?
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair Hips. But yeah, I'll build on what Executive Director Steve said. You know, in healthcare, we went through this evolution too, you know, where I remember when I first chaired the quality committee of a healthcare organization, the doctor who was my co-chair said, we were legends in our own mind because we had no measures of anything to say how good we thought we were. So this is really critical, and it's critical for the board to be able to say, we've got a wonderful strategic plan, but how will we know if it's being successful? So thank you very much for aligning it to the planks of the strategy too. I guess my question is, you know, on a couple things, and are there, let me just pause on the student success plank first. And are we looking to our outcome measures at all, post-graduation outcome measures, to see, we want these engaged, develop these engaged students, and do we look at things like, you know, employment outcomes, career progression, other things, you know, debt relief would be good. So those kinds of things, are we looking towards outcomes? I appreciate there's a mix of process and outcome measures there, but wondering about the post-graduation ones.
Regent Wheeler, Chair Hips, I would perhaps ask the provost to also engage in this if she wishes, because some of those things are going to show up in your
Both.
Yeah, in the university-wide report that the provost spoke to. Not the items in the strategic roadmap are going to help influence them, but we're not measuring those specifically in the roadmap. They would fall into the accountability report.
Yeah, and maybe Provost Ritter too, just addressing, I know there's some national measures. It's always good to have benchmarks that you can compare against. And I know there's some on student engagement too.
Yeah.
So if you could speak to the student engagement metrics potentially and the outcomes, that would be great. Thank you.
So we've been tracking for a while outcomes in terms of employment or continuing education, and I would like to break those out a little bit more, is one of the things that I think you'll see a change with. The engagement measure is important, and you're right. It's not one of the things that we capture directly, right? So going back to the comment that the president made earlier, we are interested in being able to have, as part of student records, direct measures of things like, did you have an internship? Did you do study abroad? Were you involved in undergraduate education? Did you do a community engaged learning opportunity? All of which research tells us has a huge positive impact academically, in terms of retention, in terms of career. So we've defined some of these. We know what it is that we want to look at. But right now, we're drawing it from surveys, and it's not a good way to be drawing it.
Thank you.
May I add? Thank you. So Chair Hips, Regent Wheeler, we are also looking at some of the national benchmarking. So for example, we're an AAU university. And with that, in order to stay an AAU university, there's a series of criteria that one has to hit. And with that, it's those are components that we should be tracking, and the provost and I are working on. For example, the number of what we call prestige awards. But if our, how many of our faculty are in the National Academy of Medicine, the National Academy of Engineering, the AAA, et cetera, and that's one of the things that is looked at, for example, across our peers, and we can look at those things and require mechanisms to do that. So we're looking at both the benchmarking across, and I think with these, and eventually as we firm up the data, something like let's say a 6-year graduation rate, to your point on goals, right? It shouldn't just be a number. We should also understand where we want to be as a university on that number, and then we can have a healthy conversation about whether we're there or not. But that can be done by benchmarking of our peers, et cetera. Yeah.
And just a quick comment on prestigious awards. I think one of the things that the president and I have observed is that we are currently underperforming in that category, not because of the quality of our faculty are amazing, but because of Minnesota Humble. We haven't done enough to get folks nominated.
There's a whole strategy and process that universities use, and sometimes with some staff support, on how you nominate people for their professional organization, and then you nominate them for their national position, you nominate them for a Regents Award, et cetera. And those things ladder up to national organizations, which then gives them national prominence. But one has to have a structure for that and a plan for that, and it's one of those things. But also other things that the AAU tracks. I mean, certainly, our Pell student graduation, things like that. These are things we should just be tracking, whether the state wants them or not. We would be negligent if we are not tracking those things, and you should hold us accountable to understanding them and trying to improve them.
Okay. Anybody else have anything? Great work. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, that brings us to the report of committees. I'll note that the Academic Health Committee did not meet this month. Let's begin with Litigation Review Committee. Regent Hines, would you please share your report?
Thank you, Chair Hipsch. The Litigation Review Committee met on December 11, 2025. The committee adopted a resolution that authorized the closing of the meeting to discuss matters subject to the attorney-client privilege. Thank you, Chair Hipsch. That concludes my report.
Thank you. For the report of the Audit and Compliance Committee, Regent Verhalen, please share your report.
Thank you, Chair Hipsch. The Audit and Compliance Committee took up 3 agenda items this month. First, Assistant Vice President and Controller Viola and the university's appointed independent external auditor, Clifton Larson Allen, provided the committee with the external auditor report and the results of the fiscal year 2025 financial statement audit. I'm pleased to report that the financial audit had no material adjustments or weaknesses and no significant deficiencies. Next, Interim Chief Compliance Officer John Gooden provided the annual institutional compliance report and institutional conflict of interest report through a flip presentation. This gave us a valuable look into the work being done in both of those areas to monitor and enhance the university's culture of compliance. I encourage all of the regents to watch that presentation. Finally, the committee adopted a resolution that authorized the closing of the meeting to discuss information technology with our interim CSIO. Thank you, Chair Hipsch. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Regent Verhalen. And for the report of the Governance and Policy Committee, Regent Verhalen, please share your report. MVR, Most Valuable Regent.
The Governance and Policy Committee did not consider any action items this month. In addition to the review of the work plan for the year, the committee heard an overview of board appointment authority for athletics positions as defined by Board of Regents policy, reservation, and delegation of authority. This brought forward an item that the Board of Regents itself felt was appropriate for the Governance and Policy Committee to consider. The agenda item outlined peer data and options for potential adjustments to ensure board oversight while recognizing changing dynamics with head coaching hires, positions that are significantly different from other positions approved by the board. I would encourage all of the regents who are not on the committee to watch the recording and please provide feedback to myself or the board office, because in February, we will talk through a potential framework to help inform future potential amendments in this area. Finally, the committee received an information item from Executive Director Steves, in which he presented 2 board policies that have completed comprehensive review. Thank you, Chair Hipsch. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Regent Verhalen. Next, we will receive the reports of the Mission Fulfillment and Finance and Operations Committees. Reports will note the items the committees approved on behalf of the board. We will start with the Finance and Operations Committee. Regent Wheeler, your report, please.
Thank you, Chair Hips. The Finance and Operations Committee unanimously approved 3 items on behalf of the board this month. Those items were 2 real estate transactions, the consent report, which included amendments to the civil service rules, capital budget amendments, 2 employment agreements, and Morris Campus Plan, off-cycle tuition rate changes, and the use of long-term capital financing program proceeds. There were no other action items approved this month. Thank you, Chair Hipsch. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Regent Wheeler. For the Mission Fulfillment Committee report, Regent Tad Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Mission Fulfillment Committee unanimously approved 1 item on behalf of the board this month. That item was the consent report, which included the approval of changed academic plans, approval of discontinued academic plans, approval of new academic programs, conferral of tenure on new hires, and the use of appropriation funds for the benefit of health sciences to report to the state of Minnesota. There were no other action items approved this month. Thank you, Chair Hipsch. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Regent Johnson. That brings us to unfinished business. Is there any unfinished business to come before the board? Hearing none, is there any new business to come before the board? None? Okay, we are now adjourned. Thank you, everyone.